So how I am going to mix my soil for my flowers for starter for next spring is I have this Bloom Booster Flowers Food. And in the container here I have 4 cups of potting soil, 3 cups of perlite, and basically I am mixing it to where it's thoroughly mixed. I also start my flower seedlings with this soil as well. So if I have seedlings for any type of flowers, I am going to just put it indirectly into the pot as I am trying to grow the seeds. So now that this part of the soil is mixed, I'm going to add in some flower food. Not a lot, just a little bit. You can also add this mixture to the top of your pot. So if you have any type of flowers that you start in a little pot for right now in the garage or in the patios or outside, you can take this compound and just drizzle it to the top. That would also help create that will help give nutrients to your flowers. And I promise you, the springtime your flower will bloom like crazy. So for example, this mixture is done. I'm gonna go over here. These are my cutting of the epiphyllum. As you can see that there are a little tiny bit of space in the little pot because I have constantly watered them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some of the mixture to cover the top of the plant. And then once you have this mixture on the top, you don't want to water the plant from the top. You want to just soak the water from the bottom to the top, because that way you don't waste your the flower food. If you water it from the top down, the flower food and the perlite will actually flows out and your plant doesn't have the nutrients that it needs. So generally what I would do is I would put it into a plate or a container, and then when I water the plant, I water into the container and make sure that you don't water the soil or the plant directly, because you want to make sure that the plant absorbs the nutrients that you just applied to the top of the pot. So if you water it into the container like so, the water will soak up and the plants will get the nutrients or get the water from its roots. And I think it'll be happier that way. But these are my epiphyllums cuttings that I've started. As you can see, that it's doing fantastic with just a tiny 4-quart square pots. And as for my bigger plant over here that is struggling to survive the winter outside, I'm going to actually give this plant some more soil so that way next spring it will bloom for me, because honestly I've never seen these flower bloom before. I just started growing them. So potting soil, perlite, and flower food. And your flower will be happy as it could be. I don't know why, but playing with dirt actually calms my soul. And I'm addicted to gardening. But hopefully I can nurse this. Oh, this is cute. Let it go right there. Hopefully this flower will bloom for me next year. And I will be tickled pink when it blooms, because I think it's actually pink, but look like it has enough soil. There we go. There we go. So now with the leftover soil that I have in this particular pot, what I'm going to do, or this particular bowl, is I have a few seeds that I want to start. It's very shallow. It's not that much soil, so it's okay to start some seedlings in here. And then when the seedling grows, you just take it out of the bowl and you can plant it in the ground. So in my hand I have 3 little seeds. This is daylily seeds, and I'm just gonna drop it in here, and I'm just gonna mix the soil up a little bit, and I'm just gonna take it outside because honestly I don't have space in the house to put them in the house. So I'm gonna take this pot outside, and if it grows, great. If it doesn't grow, then I'm gonna start new ones. But this is how I start my daylily seeds and how I create more soil for my plant when it is struggling to live, because it's been outside, it's been damaged by the sun, it's been eaten by bugs, it's been through the weather, and is not very happy. So I want to make sure that it's happy, giving it a little bit nutrients and food and some more soil, and keep it inside the house to hopefully it will do better. But aside from that, got several things going like always, and I hope that everything grows and so I can have a garden full of flowers. Yay! Okay, so it's time for me to repot my cactus flower here, or the Christmas cactus flower. I'm also going to start some new cutting of it too as well. As you can see that they are blooming right now because they are in season to bloom, which meant that is not a bright idea to actually start cutting them and start cuttings of them. However, I don't do everything by the book of business because I am going to propagate it whenever I have time. Generally, you want to propagate the Christmas cactus in July, but for me, I am doing it now because I want to make sure that my bloom is growing and it blooms big. So by cutting a couple of cutting off of the plant, it will be okay. It will help them to bloom bigger. That way it doesn't concentrate a lot on the leaves that doesn't have any bloom. So it's also another way is to like the strategy is to get big blooms and keep the plant trim, because see, like these part here, I don't know if you, my camera is not so there are leaves that, like this one where my finger is at, this leaves here, it doesn't have any bloom. And there are leaves, there's smaller leaves here that doesn't have any blooms. There are also cluster of leaves in here that doesn't have bloom. So I want all the energy to go to the leaves that has bloom. So therefore I'm gonna trim the leaves that doesn't have any bloom, so that way my flower will bloom bigger and healthier. However, if you are to want to keep the cactus happy, you want to trim them and propagate them in July, not during the time that it bloomed. Okay, so what I have here is 4 cups of soil, and I have 2 cups of perlite. Because it is a cactus like, it needs a lot of drainage, and because I'm growing it in a pot, I need to have perlite to keep the soil and to keep the flowers happy. You can also put in the flower bloom in here too as well, which I think I should do it because it will help my flower bloom and healthy. And any nutrients for them is good. So basically you want to put a little bit of flower bloom or miracle grow in the soil, so that way it will help your plant flowers and bloom beautifully. Okay, so again, I have this flower food and I'm using it in the soil. This may be too much, but again, the flower is in a pot, so basically I'm just gonna upgrade the plant into a little bit larger pot, because I don't want to overwhelm the root, and it is a flowering season for them, so I don't want them to go into shock. This one is the cactus flower, but it's pink and whitish color. So basically there are not a lot of blooms in this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check to make sure that the one that I will be cutting off to start the rooting, it doesn't have any flower buds. So as you can see here, there's this one I can cut off, because this one, it doesn't have any flower buds on it, and it doesn't look like it's gonna form flowers. And then this one here in the middle, it's a little bit overcrowding too as well. So basically I'm gonna cut this part off too as well. And when you grow these, they're so resilient that you can just cut it right here and it will actually make into like multiple plant for you. So like that. And sometimes you only need one piece of this to make it into a different plant. So there you go. It's taking root just perfect. It's doing great. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this bigger pot. It's semi bigger, it's not as huge. I'm just gonna line it with a little bit of soil, and I'm gonna put it in to a little bit larger pot. And the cactus plant, they actually like filter light. So what you want to do is you want to keep them near a window, and they do not like direct sunlight. So there you go. It is now in a bigger pot. So I use potting soil with flower food with perlite. That way it keeps down the moistures, and it keeps the plants happy, so you don't overwater them. The potting soil that I use is the potting soil that allows you to keep that regulates the amount of water that is inside the pot, which means that it actually regulates the moisture, so that way it doesn't have too much moisture for you. As you can see that these one here, it's bigger and it has more flower. It is more root bound. So when it's more root bound, you just want to like soften it or breaking it apart, but don't disturb too much, because the plant, it's flowering, it's gonna get upset. So you just wanted to like crush it up a little bit, but not disturbing it too much, because you don't want the plant to wither away. And as you can see, I'm using these kind of pots that that are a little bit bigger, but they're not as big. They're not as small as its original pot. Just so that way I can keep them in a little contained area to just watch them bloom. And when they get a little bit bigger, and when they get a little bit more root bound, then I will upgrade it to a bigger pot. But as of right now, I'm gonna keep it in a smaller pot, and I'm gonna enjoy the bloom while they are inside the house. So it's tiny, and you can put it into a decorative pot, and you can put it into your kitchen table or somewhere like that, so you can have it. So you can put this directly into a decorative pot, and then you can put water in the pot, and it will self-water itself for you, so you don't have to water the plants often. But it looks like every leaves of this plant has a bud on it, or it's coming out with a bud, so I'm not going to disturb it, because I want them to bloom and grow and be happy. So there it is. It's been repot. It has enough nutrients for it. It has new soil at the bottom, and it has soil on both sides, and it is still in a very small container. So if you just put this into your favorite pot, or you can put it into a, something like this, and you just placed it on your kitchen table, and you have a little a little real flower decoration. So you just put it into your kitchen table, and it looks beautiful, and it's blooming perfectly. And now that it has a bigger pot, I'm sure that it's happy, because look at that flower right there. Isn't it pretty? Now I have these teacups that I do not use anymore, and what I am going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of soil in here, and with the cutting that I have from the original plant, I'm gonna start some cactus cutting. I don't know if it's going to actually flowers off of a cup of tea, but it is actually a wonderful gift. So basically it's a little bit dirty right now, but you can wash it and give it to a friend as a gift for Christmas. And as the flower grow, they just need to break open the cup, or they tipped it over and kind of take the plant out so they can have their own cactus plant. These cuttings are from my original cactus plant that I have, which is also pink, but this part of this cactus plant did not flower because I've left it outside and it's fighting with the weather. So what I'm gonna do is I worry that it might die. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna propagate them by doing this. Now these are a lot of cuttings, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to separate these cutting out. And generally I like to cut them as much as I can because I want multiple leaves to grow and excelled. So this one is part of the white Iplium, or not the cactus flower that I have. So white one, and I have pink one. So there's two different colors in one cup. And that way you create values to your time and to the actual rooting process. So then once this is rooted, you have two different colors, not just one. And that's the reason why I like to root plant, because I like to have multiple colors growing in the same pot. It allows it to have more options for yourself. So basically the pink one and the white one are in this cup, and I plan to give the cup away as Christmas gifts to friends and relatives who wants them. Basically I'm just taking the cutting, I'm putting it into the soil, and I am putting two cuttings in one instead of just one one color in one pot. And that will give you a little bit creativity, will give you a little bit more of a options for later on, because when you go out and buy a plant, you only get one color at a time. But when you propagate them and grow them together, they're the same plant. They're the same type of plant, but they're two different colors. So that way you get more for your time and patience for waiting for these things, for these cuttings to grow. Now the cactus, the Christmas cactus, the earwigs love to eat them. Bugs loves to eat them. So when you do your cutting, you want to keep it somewhere away from the earwigs, away from the pretty much you want to keep them away from the bugs, because you want to see them bloom, you want to see them thrive. The last thing I want is to have bugs crawling all over the place and eating up my plant. Sometimes I have like these glass that I have too many of. What I normally do is I save them and I root things in them. It allows me to see the rooting process. So yes, you can use what you have around the house as pots, But because they are in a airtight container, you do not want to overwater them. So for the cactus or for the succulent plants, like, I only water them once or twice a week, and I also use my finger to check the plant or the soil to ensure that they have enough water, and I don't overwater them. Because when you overwater them, what's going to end up happening is that there will be rotting, and when it rot inside of your house, it smells really bad. So you don't want to go through that process yourself, and it's no fun when you want to when you do something, you want to succeed, you don't want to fail. So overwatering them could be an issue, but try to avoid it. I do that most time too, so I know. So now I have move this aside. I have propagated 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5, 6. So this means that 6 people are going to be a little happy camper this year if they like Christmas cactus. And as I have explained, that these Christmas cactus are not only one color, but they're 2 colors. They're pink and whitish pink colorish, and I'm growing them together. So basically, for my friends who are not very savvy with growing the plant, I'm going to give them these type of containers or in the teacup. The reason for that is that I tell them to just water it once a week, and just a little bit of water at a time. Once this grow and it get root bound, then I'm going to ask them to either break the cup or break the jar or whatnot, and grow that into a bigger container, and they can use the soaking method to soak the plant in instead of watering it from the top. But I am positive that this is gonna grow for them and basically flower for them, because the cuttings are very resilient. I am going to keep these cutting in the home, inside the house, because we have rain, and the rain will produce more water, which creates overwatering the plant, and they will not take root. Even though it has perlites and other perlites and plant food and all kind of nutrients in it, I just don't want it to be outside in the weather, because this is what happened once they are in the rain, the sun. They are withering up and they are not flowering. They pretty much have to protect themselves from the weather. Therefore, they are not flowering for me. So since I have one growing outside, and I live in California, so I thought that everything will flower and grow and bloom beautifully, because I live in a very kind of like tropical environment. But due to the global warming, the weather out here has been extremely weird, and so we have extreme wind, we have frost in the night, and so therefore these cactus flowers here, they're actually creating hair on the top, so that way they don't get eaten by earwigs, and they don't get eaten by any critters. And also they are creating hair to keep their vulnerable leaf warm, which meant that they are just trying to survive. Therefore, they don't have time to produce flower for me. So with that being said, that's the reason why I cut a few cuttings, and I'm going to start them over and keep them inside the house to keep somewhat of a level temperature, because generally the the cactus, cactus flowers that I got from the nursery, these are grown inside of a inside the home or inside the greenery or the greenhouse, so they don't have to worry about weather protection like the one I abused and kept outside of the house. So by learning that lesson, I am going to now propagate my old cactus plant while I have the new one, of which I just purchased, to enjoy. With that being said, thank you for listening and thank you for watching. I hope this helped, because this is all based on my experience of gardening and maintaining my flowers and plants. And basically, I am just here to help you help explain the process of what I see my flower does and what I'm doing for my flower in order for me to get beautiful blooms, because I want everyone to be successful. And if I say something that you may have disagree, or if I explain something that's incorrect, please correct me, because I too am learning. Life is a learning journey. You learn until the day that you die. And godly, I've learned from kids, I've learned from babies, I've learned from elderly, I've learned from everybody. So just keep your heart open, your ear open, and you too can learn beautiful things from everyone around you. Just don't learn to be a bad human. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and happy holiday to you, or Merry Christmas.